When a certain global pandemic hit in 2020, I felt the absence of a Sunday ritual I grew to love: watching competitive fighting games. In the before times, on most weekends, fighting game players from all over the globe would fly into a new city to compete against each other until one person would be crowned the grand finals winner. However, the pandemic caught many fighting game developers flat-footed, lacking the online infrastructure needed for players to play quality matches from long distances. I found myself in search for a substitute. This is the first MMA match I've ever seen. It lasted just 13 brief seconds. Most people saw Conor's historic counter left, but I saw something else. In the fighting game community, we would call this footsies. It's a sort of back and forth dance that you engage in with your opponent in order to maintain distance and create opportunities to attack. Oftentimes, being right outside of the range of your opponent's normals will cause them to miss entirely, leading to them getting frustrated and making mistakes, or getting hit in return, also known as whiff punishing. When middleweight legend Israel Adesanya fought Brazilian powerhouse Paulo Costa in September of 2020, he put on a distance management clinic. Most people who end up fighting Israel find themselves unable to close the distance, eating leg kicks until they're unable to put weight on their legs or move the way that they need to. Eventually, Paulo Costa got frustrated and felt the need to go in, eating a clean left hook. That led to Israel breakdancing 6 feet from where Paulo was receiving medical attention. Here's a clip from Ricky Ortiz vs Gamerby in Capcom Cup 2016. Ricky Ortiz might as well have only pressed one button on her fight stick, Chun-Li's standing heavy punch. Like Israel, she maintained the distance she wanted to play at, outside of Nakali's range, but within the range of Chun-Li's standing fierce. To some, this style of fighting might not look very exciting. Lately, UFC fans have criticized Israel as quote-unquote boring, oftentimes winning a clean fight by decision instead of fulfilling the audience's desire to see two people beat each other into a pulp. It could also be because he's flamboyant and tends to express himself in ways that are different from the standard UFC meathead mold. I see both Ricky Ortiz and Israel Adesanya's style of fighting as beautifully fundamental, especially in contrast to some of the more offensive styles of play in fighting games. In fact, Ricky's display of fundamentals was so clean, it made Marvel vs. Capcom legend IFC Yipes react like this.
Man, Yipes is feeling it right now.
That was out of control.
Which isn't to say that one style of game or fighting is better than the other. In my opinion, they are both more enjoyable because the other exists. Next, we're going to look at Rose Namajunas vs Zhang Weili. To set the story up, Zhang Weili is the current flyweight champion of the UFC. She's incredibly strong for the 115-pound weight class, and pretty much universally loved, not only for her infectious personality, but her unbelievable display of toughness inside the cage. Growing up in Wisconsin, Rose Namajunas always wanted to be a farmer. She's an incredible fighter, but if you visit her YouTube channel, you'll see tours through her community garden plot, group prayers, and videos of her playing the piano for her Lithuanian grandmother. When they both meet April 24th of 2021, they engage in the back and forth feeling out process that can also be found in fighting games. Rose dances around Weili with an offbeat tempo, bobbing left, right, right, left, and then 1 minute and 13 seconds in, Let's take some time dissecting this kick. First, we'll have to talk about habits and how they can be taken advantage of. In Street Fighter V, many players will delay throw on their own wake up as a habitual defensive option. This can be blown up with what's called a shimmy, letting the throw whiff so that you can punish it. More specific knowledge can be used against particular players, like in this instance when Phenom took advantage of Daigo's tendency to eat command grabs. When Zhang Weili won her war against Polish Muay Thai specialist Joanna Jędrzejczyk, you can see here that she would avoid eating leg kicks by moving her hips out of the way. When we look at Rose's kick, you can see that she steps in and looks down at Weili. She reacts in the way that she's used to reacting, and then Rose goes high, taking advantage of the habitual defensive option. Rose's championship-winning high kick also feels to me like a mix-up. Here's a simple high-low mix-up with Zato 1 as an example. When I get a knockdown, and my boy Eddie locks the opponent down with drills, I can use an overhead to open up opponents who are crouch blocking. Or I can go low and open up opponents who are stand blocking. Neither of them feel too good. Here's 18-year-old up-and-comer Raul Rosas Jr. faking a flying knee into a double leg takedown, which I find hilariously tight, but also an easy parallel to an empty jump throw in fighting games, where an opponent blocks high expecting the jump in, but just eats a command grab instead. As problematic as the UFC can be, I found myself using it as a substitute while the fighting game community had to be put on pause for a couple years. I thought a lot about why a person would risk all that brain trauma and long-term injury for really mediocre pay and no health insurance for the slim chance to make it big. More often than not, as I dug into the backstories of these athletes, I found a more than satisfying answer. I think what draws people to watch both fighting games and fighting sports are the stories of the people who participate. The most fascinating thing about Francis Ngannou is not the fact that he has the hardest recorded punch on the planet, but that he escaped child labor in Cameroon, migrated to France, and used martial arts as a way to climb his way out of homelessness. The most fascinating thing about Arslan Ash is not the fact that he won EVO 2019, but that his breakout performance uncovered that the Pakistani Tekken community has secretly been the strongest on earth. Thankfully, the fighting game community is back offline in some capacity, and recent releases of fighting games have implemented better netcode so that we can see a higher level of play online as well. But, above anything else, I think it'll be most exciting to see new stories being written again.